My slide deck link is down here in the bottom right-hand corner. I'm a very naughty presenter and did not submit my session resources as I was told. Stacy may or may not have emailed me a half a dozen times, so I will get them posted to the resources page post this session. Excuse me. This particular session is going to be very much about our process at Ames Community Schools. What we did, what we've done, you can learn from some of our mistakes, but this session and this slide deck actually is going to run the gamut. So if you're a tech director, there hopefully are a few little nuggets that you can pick up in here and about how to set up, how to decide on what devices you want to use, some of the gotchas relative to Android on Chrome, and also if you are a classroom teacher who has the opportunity to use some of these tools, there are quite a few apps that we're going to talk about at the end that are Android apps that function really, really well on the Chrome device in particular. My name is Karl Hehr. I am the Director of Technology for Ames Community Schools. There are many familiar faces in here. Here's my Twitter account, my Google Plus account, my email account. I am more than willing to help out if you want to shoot me an email, hit me up on social media, and I will get back to you. It might take a little bit because ultimately my job is to help support Ames Community Schools and our many devices and many little kiddos. But one of the things I love so much about the Google ecosystem is I have yet to run into anybody that doesn't like to share their stuff. It's a great community. People are always sharing, hey, how'd you do this, how'd you do that? And I think that's maybe even more widespread in education in particular. Goofy certifications that I don't really care about, but some people do. GAF Admins podcast, we actually had a live podcast earlier today, right before lunch. Had some technical difficulties, but it did get recorded and we'll post it eventually. We try to do one of those podcasts once a month. They are tech director specific. We've talked about Android on Chrome a couple different times, but that one gets pretty nerdy. If you're looking for something to fall asleep to, that might be worth your time. So we're going to start talking about devices. In particular, the devices that we have at Ames and the process that we went through. We started out piloting Nexus 7 tablets, Android tablets, in the Google Play for EDU. We started piloting that because the process to get apps in and out was purported to be so simple. We took the opportunity to give teachers the power to install apps. They could just go to a website, put in a kid's email address, and theoretically, within a matter of minutes, an app would show up on that kid's tablet. It wasn't always the best. It was a little bit flaky at times. But what we really liked about it is it really empowered the teacher. Because those of us that are tech directors, okay, or technology decision makers, and maybe this is unique to my district, but a lot of the folks think me as a tech director is I just sit in my office and come up with ways to say no while reading your emails and drinking Monster. That's really all I accomplish. And so the ability to tell the teacher, hey, you know what? You are a professional educator. You know that this app will work really well with your kids. You just go ahead and push it out. You don't have to ask the media specialist. It doesn't have to come to the tech director. It doesn't have to come to your principal. We could even preload a purchase order into the Google Play for EDU store. So that teacher basically had an allowance. Here is $50, right, in apps. And we had, the foundation gave money for this, that, and the other thing, so they could buy apps and do what they wanted to. And for the most part, that worked really well for us. Until within 5 or 6 months of us starting this pilot, Google came out and said, congratulations, we're doing away with EDU tablets specifically, and now we're going to have this super top secret thing that we're going to use for EDU going forward. Because I have access to some things as a certified administrator and all that kind of certified trainer stuff, I did know that they were going to eventually try to make Android run on Chrome, which was really exciting to me, and we knew that these were going to be the specific tablets or devices that we could use. So we had to start planning and thinking, what could we do? I had one school that was using iPads, K1, and for them to get an app on one of those carts of iPads that was in their room, they had to go to the media center. The media center person had to go through the VPP process. They got the code, went to the thing, put in the apps, and a week later, the lesson was over that wanted to use the app, and the teacher's mad because it took a week to get it there. And I know I'm not going to bash Apple in today's session. It's gotten better, the deployment process. Those of you that do deploy and manage a lot of iPads, it has gotten better. Cart-based deployment still is a little bit wonky. But we wanted to try to find a way to get rid of our iPads, get touch devices in the hands of our kids, and get back to what we had with that Play for EDU. So at the time, I had 2 device choices. I had the Asus Flip here, or the Acer R11, which is this tablet here. These are both fully convertible Chromebooks. They flip all the way around, have a touch screen. These are now actually a couple years old. They aren't the only kids on the block anymore. Our other option was the Pixel, but I wasn't going to buy Pixels for all of my kids. So we took these devices and we had kids play with them. Okay, we had our kindergarten kids play with them, our upper elementary kids play with them, because the idea was going to be we were going to go K5 one-to-one with a Chrome device that did both Android and Chrome and had a touchscreen. That way I can, for a single low price, give basically a kid two devices. Then they had the opportunity to use whichever part or whichever piece worked best for them. So I was really preferential to this R11. Okay? That's 11-inch screen, it's nice and rugged, it's very easy to fix, parts aren't terribly difficult to come by at the time. We really liked it. Okay? We wanted this to be the choice, we being the tech department and the tech committee, we wanted this to be our device, K5. Okay? However, nothing always goes according to Karl's plans. Our K1 kids and our K1 teachers really like this Asus Flip because it really kind of resembles an iPad with a keyboard stuck to it, right? And it has the same kind of feel to it. It's just as repairable as an iPad too, which is why we didn't really care for it. And so, however, because the kids, I mean, you can see a kid play around with this, a little kindergartner with their little bitty hands can make this work, right? They can open it, they can move it around. If they drop it, yeah, so what, whatever, okay? They couldn't open this thing. They couldn't make it work, and most of the kids, and so what's the point of buying a few hundred devices that I know kindergarten and first grade teachers and kids aren't going to want to use, especially when I had the audacity to remove the iPads, okay? So we have a one-to-one in our district right now, kindergarten through first grade, with this Asus Flip. Not this one in particular, this is one I stole from Southeast Polk temporarily. And then second through fifth grade, we were one-to-one with the Acer R11. Great form factors, and we chose them and we bought them because Google said, hey, we're going to have Android on Chrome for the start of last school year. Not the school year that started in August. They said it would be a year ago, August, be ready to go. It was in beta, it was in an invite-only beta. Maybe those of you that know me have a tendency to know that I can be kind of a hothead at times. And so I got a hold of some folks at Google because they weren't letting me into the pilot to play around with it. And I was really bummed. To which they said, well, Karl, you were in the Google Play for EDU side of this, so we can't put you in this beta. And I'm kind of like, why? That doesn't make any sense. I am familiar with that. I know how that works. I want to be able to transfer that knowledge that I've got to these new things, help my teachers learn ahead of time and get going. And they said, yeah, but it breaks some stuff. I don't care, that's fine. Well, it breaks some stuff with purchasing apps. That kind of sucks. But I said, you know what? I don't care. I want it to work. I want to try it. I want to see what happens. So they did let us get into the closed beta to start playing around with the different devices and Android on Chrome fairly early. But one of the things we had to give up is we could no longer use our deployment, our little pilot group of tablets, Android tablets, couldn't use those anymore. And we couldn't go with paid apps. So the money that we'd purchased in apps previously couldn't be transferred. The money that we purchased iPad apps from couldn't be transferred either. We also spent some time working with my K1 teachers who had iPads. We sat down with the Google Play Store for work and looked for apps that were one-to-one comparisons. So this is Billy Bob's Dolch Words for Kids on the iOS store, and here's Billy Bob's Dolch Words for Kids on the Android store. Perfect. We'll make sure this one goes on there, okay? We did a really good job for finding apps for the most part, but we did run into some issues where there weren't one-to-one comparisons. So we had to say, all right, this is a generic spelling app. Okay? Sally Smith Super Spelling, or whatever it was. Here are a list of 5 other spelling apps. I want you to play with this. I want you to test it out. I want you to see what's going on. Okay? So all of this was going on simultaneously to us saying these are the devices we were going to go, and I was all ready, and we were going to have Android going last August, and Google said, nope, not going to happen. It's not going to be ready for everybody to have. So I had to put all my iPads back into this classroom. So my kindergarten, first grade classrooms, I had iPads and Chrome touch devices. And guess what? The Chrome touch devices didn't get used very much this previous school year until we got to where we could actually start using this on our devices. At the time, we had 3 options. That list is now going, it's growing and growing and growing and growing and growing to devices that allow you to run Android on Chrome natively. Don't go to sleep. Okay. So to get started, how do I get started managing my Android on Chrome devices? Okay. You're going to want to get a device that has a touchscreen. Okay? Otherwise you lose a bunch of functionality. So you got to get a device with a touchscreen. You want to have a 16 gig hard drive, probably bigger than a 16 gig hard drive, especially if they're a shared device. Okay? And you want to have 4 gigs of RAM at the absolute minimum. Okay? So when we bought these devices the first time, those were our 3 big criteria. I didn't feel like springing for the 16 gig hard drive, so we have 16 gigs, 4 gigs of RAM, touchscreen. Most recently, when we went one-to-one, replaced our Chromebooks at our middle school, we added world-facing camera as a requirement for our devices now. So all of our Chrome devices need to have these 4 things. Okay? The reason it has to, you want to think about your hard drive size, is apps are a function of the user. Okay? It's not like your computer, your Mac or your Windows computer, where if you install Microsoft Office on that machine, all of the users have access to it. Okay? On the Chrome side of things, every user has to have that app installed for themselves. Okay? And you start to think about it, you push out a big app. For example, I'm going to talk to you guys about what's called Let Me Talk. It's a 100 meg app from the beginning. And let's say it's on a cart that's shared, and you have 6 kids all using that same Chromebook. There's 600 megs of space filled up right away just in one app. Now, rumor is they're going to continue to improve that until someday maybe we might be able to see a shared APK. Basically meaning you install it one time, all your users have access to it. User-specific data is relative to me as a user, not everybody gets it. But that's going to take some significant lifting on the programming and the APK side, because ultimately, your mobile phone is not meant to be a shared device, right? It's meant to have a single install for the user that's on that phone. And now we're starting to blur that line between a Chromebook, between a laptop, and a mobile device. So it's fundamental changes in how the programming works, but because this is starting to kick off, your programmers are going to take advantage of it because they want to put apps in the hands of kids. Okay? So how do you get started? The very first step is you have to go turn it on. You have to enable it. You have to go to Device Management, Chrome Management, Android Application Settings, and tick that little box. Okay? Now, before you tick this little box, you need to think to yourself, who is going to need to get access to this? Because you're going to check this box, and then the next step that you take, once you enable it, all of your users, when they log in the first time, are going to get this big green splash screen that says, hey, do you agree to this Google Play for EDU EULA, right? And you need to just teach all of your kids to click accept. Once they logged in that first time, they're golden. Now, if they don't use the same device every time, let's say it's a shared cart of 30, and I log in on number 1 today, number 3 tomorrow, number 6 the next day, every single time I log in, I have to say yes to that agreement, and all of the apps that I had previously downloaded have to be downloaded. And then I sit and wait. And now we're taking away one of the awesome things about a Chrome device, that it's quick and it's fast and it's nimble, like open it and go, it doesn't get in the way of instruction. So now, maybe I'm 3 weeks into this and I have a bunch of different apps installed and a bunch of different other local files. It's because I'm using the Let Me Talk and I've created my own pictures and that sort of thing. I have to sit and wait, and you think 30 devices on one AP in your building, all trying to re-download all of their apps every time the kids log in, that's a terrible idea. Okay? So you want to try to think, this is a big deal, that user-based everything. Okay? So step one, you got to turn this on. There's a link in my slide deck that walks you right through this whole process. Google does a great job of getting this up and going. How many of you are already playing with Android on Chrome? Have at least 1 or 2 devices in your domain that you're messing around with? Okay? Perfect. Perfect. The next settings, you need to go to Device Management, Chrome Management, User Settings. These are the settings that affect your users. Once you start doing this, that's when they're going to start to see those apps show up and the approve, I agree to this EULA, right? You need to go through, allow your approved set of Android applications to be installed on supported Chrome devices. You need to go to allow. By default, this is not allowed. This is also done by OU. So if you have a test OU group, please use that first to play around with this to see what works. Because as you start to play around in this ecosystem, you'll find some apps that you try to install and you approve it and it says it's installing them, but they don't actually show up. Or you install them and you launch them and they don't actually work. Okay? Because some of these devices or some of these apps haven't been written to take advantage of the way Android exists in the Chrome ecosystem. Okay? Or it's not written to show up on a large screen. Okay? A lot of your Android apps, you'll see this on iPads as well. You try to download an iPhone specific app and it's little tiny little thing in the middle, or you could get it to resize and make it big, but it's all fuzzy and goofy and it might crash once in a while. You see that with some of these apps, but it's gotten a whole lot better than it was 12, 18 months ago. The next thing you have to do is disable users from adding the following account types. You want to check the box that will keep your users from being able to go to the regular Android Play Store and use their school district account to put apps on their device. Okay, you don't want to do that. Okay? Because Google has flipped the app approval process on its head. Okay? With our Chromebooks, you can have 2 ways to do apps. I can say, y'all can install anything you want, or you can install only the things I allow you to install. Okay? How many you can only install the things I want you to install on your Chromebooks? Okay? How many of you are install anything you want unless I blacklist it? Okay, that's where I am. Right now, it's install whatever you want unless I explicitly blacklist it. This is explicit. It cannot be installed unless I approve it, and I approve it for your OU. Okay? You cannot. So if you set this all up, and a kid goes and they approve it, they bring up the Play Store on their computer, it will be blank. There will be nothing there for them to see or install or do anything with. Okay? So step 2, then you have do not allow installation from unknown sources. You don't want people installing apps from weird places. And then lastly, synchronize your Google Chrome OS certificate to Android apps. Is anybody using SSL certificates on their Chromebooks to do HTTPS and SSL back to their network in any way, shape, or form? Okay. If you have SSL certs on your Chromebooks, you need to have this set so that it doesn't disable it, so that it basically passes that SSL cert to any Android app that wants to be able to use it. For 99% of the people I talk to, you can have this set to no policy, because you're not trying to dump an SSL cert onto that Chromebook. Okay? So that's step 2 of 3. We've turned it on. We've enabled it for a specific OU. And you can do this at the root OU level if you want. Then the last step is you have to start approving apps. And until you approve apps, that store is empty. There are 2 ways to get to the App Store. You can go through the dashboard if you want, or you can go to play.google.com/work. The one thing that you will notice if you go to this URL is any app that costs money does not exist here. There is currently no way for you to purchase an Android app and push it out to an Android on Chrome device. It does not work. There's not a way to do that yet. Okay? What you are seeing is developers are setting up their credentialing in a way that you purchase a subscription so that your username and password, your email and password, your Google credentials, grant you access to the content, like WeVideo, Soundtrack, Explain Everything, those type of applications. You can push WeVideo, we push WeVideo out to our devices for all of our kids, and we have that subscription. Okay, it's also a free version of WeVideo if you want to do that as well. But so developers are now changing how they do things. There was one app that we used on our iPads all the time. It was called Book Creator. My elementary school teachers were super stinking bummed because originally we found it in the Play Store for EDU because there is an Android version of Book Creator. It cost like $4.99 or something like that. It was relatively inexpensive. And we could buy it for our tablets. So we're like, yay, let's use it on our Chromebooks. It's paid apps, we can't. So last I checked, the developer is currently working on a web-based version of their tool. So we're talking platform agnostic. And they're going to move to a subscription-based, similar to much of these other apps. Back early on in my career, the only subscription-based app I ever had to worry about was AutoCAD. And I thought, this is the greatest thing ever. You don't actually own the software, you rent the software. I'm spending thousands of dollars every single year for the privilege of using AutoCAD. I sure hope other software companies don't pick up on this, otherwise I'm going to have trouble paying for things. Well, guess what? Everything is that way now. You think about all the different stuff that you have, we don't really buy software anymore. We just rent it for a short period of time. And that's what you're starting to see with these as well. So if you go to, I'm going to go ahead and hop into my admin dashboard. Insert joke about my password being dots.
Why is your password dots? I see Hunter.
Super top secret though.
Oh, okay.
Take that, dark overlord. And whenever it decides to get to where it's supposed to, I'm going to go to device management because everything is done under device management. I'm going to go to Chrome management. And lastly, I'm going to go down here to app management. Google has brought some of this all back together, all into one place. So you can see your configured Chrome apps. These are different apps that I have blocked or in kiosk mode or that sort of thing. But what I care about is my Android apps. And you can see here, eventually, a list of these are the apps that we have pushed out for our kids right now. Okay? And you can see over on the side their status. And we're going to talk about their status here in a little bit, what that means, their status. Okay? But we have Adobe, some Adobe apps on there because for whatever reason, Adobe is giving out really, really awesome apps for Android for $0. And how great is it to be able to take advantage of a tool like Adobe Illustrator at no cost and be able to draw with a stylus to your finger and have different brush sizes and stuff like that if you're into the whole vector art thing, right? There are other ones on here that you can see. Explain Everything, Epic Books, Google Classroom, Arts and Culture, Photos. Where's the one that... This one doesn't work yet. I really want this one to work. Expeditions. Because I would love to be able to have every single classroom in my elementary school have a expedition kit in its classroom, right? Yeah, it's not as cool as putting it into Google Cardboard, and I suppose you could make Google Cardboard big enough to hold this, and you could kind of go like so if you wanted, but that'd be kind of weird too. But you're already spending all this money on a Chrome device that's also a mobile device, so why buy another expedition kit? So from my understanding is they're going to continue to work and continue to improve that, and someday we might see it there. But that's a perfect example of an app that I've approved because it's in the store that doesn't really work on my device. So you want to test out some of these things. So I want to add an app. I'm going to click down here in the bottom right hand corner, big yellow button with a plus on it. And it's going to take me to the ability to approve apps. They put it all together. Give me the name of an app. Or a thing you want to do with an app.
Street View.
Street View? I don't know if that was going to be in here. Street Fighter.
No.
Okay. So there's Google Street View. Okay? All I have to do is press approve. It's going to tell me, here are all the things that I want to have access to as an app. This is why it's an approval first, not a denial-based system. There are a lot of apps that are not written very well and are very insecure, and nobody looks at what this is. Okay? This is like the iTunes EULA. How many of you have read the iTunes user agreement? Word for word. All 120 pages.
Okay, that's good.
Did you find the section in the EULA where it mentions you can't use iTunes to control a nuclear facility? Bet you didn't know that was in there. Google it, I promise you it's there. Okay? But nobody reads it. We just go ahead, right? So now the onus is on the administrator to approve that app. Say, yes, I understand that I'm granting access to this. The other thing you need to think about too is that whole kind of FERPA thing, right? What access and information is this app going to get that's going to connect to where, and what are the age of the kids that are going to be using it? Okay?
So if you have to do all that on behalf of your users, why can't you approve the EULA for the store on behalf of your users?
That is a very good question. One that I've asked a number of times. And I've been told over and over, it is currently a user-based choice, and you cannot opt in for them at this time. And that's almost verbatim what I hear every single time, right? So now you have the option to set a couple different things, because app developers constantly change permissions on their apps. Like, hey, I need to have access to this now, or hey, I need to have access to this now. When the world-facing cameras first came out, none of the developers were ready for it. They're like, oh man, this world-facing camera thing. I had no idea you could have a device with 2 cameras in it that wasn't a phone. So we got a lot of updates right away that said, hey, I want access to both of your cameras, not just one camera. So I had to come back in here and do some stuff. So you have 2 options. You can say, keep it approved until the app requests new permissions, even when it asks for new, so it'll keep working. Or you can say, revoke this app until somebody reapproves it again. Okay? Your best practice is going to say revoke the app approval. Because what's happening is if the app continues to work and it changes what it needs access to, it's going to get that information anyway. You're just basically giving it approval by default. Because you approved it the first time, we're just going to trust that app going forward. So you want to say revoke app approval when updates needed. I'm going to click save. And nothing happens. Because you have to go back to Chrome, device management, into app management, find the app that you just approved, and tell Google who gets it. Okay? So I'm going to find my Google Street View. Right here. Notice it says not configured. Okay? That means nobody has access to this app yet. So I have to click on the Google Street View app, and then a very familiar screen should show up to you if you have done any sort of stuff in the admin console, where you can tell by OU who gets access to this app. You can set it at the domain root level if you want, or you can get as specific as you want. I'm going to go ahead and just throw it on my my testing OU. And then we have 4 options. We can allow installation. That's the top one. Click. We can allow installation. That means your users can go to the Play Store logo, which is now on their computer, right down here, and they can install any of the apps that you've approved. Okay? You can also force installation. That means the next time somebody logs into their Chromebook, that app will start downloading on their computer. Your third option here is to pin it to the taskbar so that it installs it and it puts it down to your taskbar at the bottom. Okay, so it's an app you know you want your kids to have access to. So once Seesaw for Classrooms started functioning on these devices, I force installed it and pinned it to the taskbar at the bottom so all of my littles could find it as quick as possible. Okay, because there's nothing worse than a bunch of distracted adults trying to help kindergartners use a computer. Okay, because kids are on task. It's the adults that are having a hard time with it. So you get these set. Your last one is configuration. Certain apps require you to upload a configuration utility or configuration profile. I haven't run across one yet. That's the fourth one. For the most part, if you get an app that requires that, they will have specific instructions on how to use it. So the last thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to click Save. Yes?
Did you choose the override?
I did in that particular case, because my domain settings at the top is everything is off by default. Okay. So now, any number of things could trigger my user getting this app. The next time they log in, it waits the prescribed amount of time, they restart their device. Or you allow them to go to Chrome://policy and hit refresh policy. And then theoretically, that app should start showing up on their device. Okay? I'm a little bit snippy with Google right now because that is not currently functioning with my account on this particular device at this second. However, my demo account, it was working just fine on. So it's something with my account, so I gotta fix that. Okay? But then that app starts to trickle out. We, for the most part, just throw apps into the allowed portion. That's all we do. And then if a kid wants to go grab it, they can go grab it. Okay? If a teacher wants them to have it, they can go grab it, they can do what they want. However, there are some apps that we push and we pin, depending on grade level. Okay? So those of you that have heard me harp on OU structure and how important it is for you to keep your things organized and your kids into buckets, and it's important here of all places to be organized, this is a perfect example of how it's going to bite you in the rear end if you don't have that organizational structure set up appropriately. Because a teacher could come to you and say, hey, I want my kindergartners to have access to app whatever. If you have all of your kindergartners in one bucket called students, you're going to have a hard time pushing it to just the kindergartners, okay? Or just the first graders, or just your elementary school, okay? But that's a soapbox for a different presentation, okay? So I have approved this. Now, one of the things that, because I have a big mouth, I have had the opportunity to share my opinions on this particular workflow with Googlers a bunch of different times. I am also not alone in saying this isn't a super great way to push apps, especially compared to what we used to have with the Play Store for EDU, right? Nowhere in here am I empowering teachers to do squat, okay? And what I liked about that whole empowering teachers thing, that was the yay, rah, Karl, IT, educator, advocate, empower the teachers, rah, side of me. But the other side of me that liked that so much was, hey, Karl doesn't have to do it. So I was super bummed. So they're constantly trying to make this better and improve it and make it go quicker. So what we did in my particular setup is I have 5 elementary schools, okay, that all had access to this for over a year now. And what we had to do was we had to create a delegated administrator in the dashboard whose only job is to approve apps. So I have a media specialist in every building who's kind of like frontline tech support, and they also go out and help the teachers run PD and do some of the traditional library stuff, right? They are now the approvers for their buildings. So I created a custom admin role. There's instructions in here later on, or if not, you can email me, I'll tell you what they are. So that if I am a kindergarten teacher at Sawyer Elementary School, and I want my kids to have Billy Bob's Dolch words, I just hop into the media center and I said, hey, Lisa, I need Billy Bob's Dolch words on my kids' machines. Lisa logs into the dashboard, approves it, sets it to kindergarten at Sawyer, and within an hour or two, maybe the next morning, all the kids have the app. Okay? I don't even request that I get told on what apps that they approve. There's apps in here that I didn't approve, but I train all of my staff on what to look for when it comes to those security settings. Okay? If it's granting access to this, this, and this, please be careful so that you don't overshare information on kids' behalf. The other thing that you will notice is on here, some of the apps have a yellow dot with an exclamation point in it. Okay? I'm going to scroll down to one. Right there, to do math. Okay? That means the permissions have changed. I want to reauthorize this app. So I'm going to click on the app. And, oh wait, I can't reauthorize it here. Super annoying. Did I say that yet? It is. I have to go back to the work store by clicking on the Approve Android Apps. I need to find To Do Math. And I have to reapprove the app. If you don't have your notifications set up to tell you, hey, an app needs a new policy, and you have this set to revoke, you will never know that the app needs it until a teacher calls and says, hey, none of these apps are working on our Chromebooks. Okay? So in that settings where you go and you approve it right here, you can come over here to notifications, and you can say, hey, email me when stuff changes with this. Then you can kind of stay on top of what's going on. Okay? I'm going to go ahead and click save.
So that app was basically disabled for all those kids that were using it?
Correct.
It didn't just not update to the new version, it stopped working.
It stopped working because I told it to stop working when permissions changed.
Okay.
And your
Do they
concern
auto-update
with
that one?
leaving that on is that they could push through approvals that you wouldn't be aware of.
Right, so let's say they change the permissions to grant access to drive storage.
Yeah,
If I told it to just leave it installed and not tell me,
right.
it's going to update and it's going to automatically get those new permissions.
Okay.
And I don't want that to happen.
Right.
And you can't just force it to not update the app, it just remain at the current version?
You cannot. It's set to auto update, which is, I don't know, okay on one hand, but not okay on another. And that's the case at least in its current iteration, right? You know, this is constantly changing. I'm betting once we get to the point where we start doing standardized assessments on this sort of thing, we want to be able to lock in certain versions so that certain ones work and that sort of stuff. So this is the device management that I kind of walked you guys through. One thing I didn't talk about, well, before I go back to hardware, any questions about how to get started? How to get started with the apps on your devices, how to play around with it? Yes, sir.
You might have touched on this before, but is there any way to know if when you deploy an app that it's going to be phone-sized on the screen, or do you just have to run it and test it?
You got to run it and test it.
Are there any plans on their part to check like it does in the Apple Store whether or not it's for a mobile device or a small mobile device?
So what Google is doing in working with their developers, they're saying all of your APKs going forward need to be adaptive. So it'll work no matter the screen size.
Okay.
So then that will become irrelevant. So when we first started playing around with some of these apps, they didn't work with it a darn, right? So like Toontastic 3D, when they first released it, the Android on Chrome, Google's like, go get Toontastic, it's a really great app, your kids can make movies, and they can write scripts, and and I'm like, this is awesome, I need to have this. And I go and I download it, and it would start, and I would hear the music, and it would crash. And I would try it again, and the same thing would happen, and I'd wipe the Chromebook, and I'd try another user, and the same thing would happen, and it was terrible. And about 5 weeks later, the developers got their ducks in a row and got it fixed. But that's where I'm kind of like, you want to test nearly every single one of these before you push them out a little bit. And so that's why I'm a media specialist. They have two devices right now. They have a Chrome device and they have an Apple device. Someday we are hopefully maybe going to have just Chrome devices for everybody. But I was telling you earlier, I kind of blew all my political capital this year getting rid of copiers and printers and stuff, going from like 105 imaging devices to 38. So I'm currently hiding under my desk and not pushing a whole lot of stuff just yet. Any other questions about apps?
Is it the same process to unapprove an app as it was to approve it?
To unapprove an app, yes. You just go in and unapprove it. Yep. Through the store or through the other
And
side.
then the user would still have to delete it if it's no longer...
No! Not anymore! Did you look ahead of my
No,
slides?
I didn't.
I found this out this morning. Now when you unapprove an app, it's gonna delete it from the user's device the next time they log in, including all locally stored information relative to that app. Yes, sir.
Does Ames Community School District currently have an iPad to Google Apps list of things that they've already found that work that we don't have to go look up? And if they do
Ames Community Schools.
Ames Community Schools currently has this document. I would have to do some stuff to it first to make it publicly available. Actually, there's a Boxer group of us that we're having a conversation. We're trying to group source a big version of that. And once that's ready, we'll kind of tweet it out and tell everybody, hey, go check this out. This is here, this is here, this is here. Because we know people I want to get to the point where you can even like do a filter on it and say, I want spelling apps, and here's spelling apps. Or I want this apps, and here's that. So we're going to get there, and I'm more than willing to share, but I can't share what I currently have. Sorry.
Too many swear words? Okay.
What's that?
Too many swear words?
No. Too many un-American things in there, I think. Anyway, I want to talk about hardware just a little bit, and we'll get back to apps. One of the big things with these new devices, okay, so this is the Acer Spin 11. I freaking love this device, okay? This is my everyday device. This is when I'm traveling around, this is the device that Karl Hehr uses. When I'm in my office, I have a Chrome box connected to 2 screens. That's the device. I use Chrome exclusively. I don't use Windows, I don't use Mac. Now, I do RDP into servers once in a while because that's part of my job. But this is all I use. We wanted a world-facing camera at the start of this school year for my middle school kids. I had exactly 2 choices. I had this one. I had Asus 3 something. And then Samsung made one that was stupid expensive. Really cool, but crazy expensive. So I originally was down to 2. So we brought this one in, and it's basically an R11 that they kept all the cool things that we liked and made it even better. So now I have a world-facing camera in here. So if I'm recording in WeVideo, I'm taking pictures, I can do that instead of like in Seesaw, where I had to kind of hold my work, and here, can you hold it real quick? Here, push the button for me, that kind of silliness. Now I just flip it open and my world-facing camera works. The thing that I wasn't jacked about were these little guys. Okay? They came with a stylus. And being an old school Apple fanboy, as Steve Jobs once put it, why do I need a stylus when I have 10 of them? Okay? So we do not deploy these to our students, mostly because they're expensive to replace. However, we started with classroom sets in our math classrooms and our art classrooms, and we have some in our library circulation. And what we did with these is we put big, giant duct tape flags on them. They're bright orange. And the kids check them out. They use them. They haven't disappeared yet, knock on wood. But otherwise, then I have a giant bucket with like 1,100 styluses in it, okay? And I wanted to know, why is this stylus $40 to replace? Because I can go downstairs and the vendor booths, they're handing out, I don't know how many people are handing out styluses, right? Okay? So what is special about the stylus? So what do you suppose I did? Yeah, it is. I cut it open with a saw. Because I want to know what was inside of it, right? Why not? Let's see what happens. So I cut it open to see what was in there, and lo and behold, I knew it was an active stylus, but I didn't know what that meant. Because here's the thing, folks, I used to be a classroom teacher. I don't have, and my technical knowledge is stuff that I've picked up, right? I've kind of figured this out how it goes, so I want to know how this active stylus thing works. So let's cut it apart and see what happens. Kind of like all the crap I broke when I was a little kid. But there's magnets in here that are basically creating this field around here that allows your computer to know that the stylus is there. So there's stuff in here, boards and all sorts of resistors and crazy things, that make it more expensive. It's called an active stylus versus a passive stylus. Most of the styluses you get for free, or 33 cents or $1 or whatever, they're passive styluses. They literally do nothing. If you would I grabbed one of those with a squishy end on it, and I used it on here, it does nothing at all. Okay? So I'm like, all right, so that's the difference. So I started looking, and I'm going to try to find some cheaper styluses. There's active styluses you can find on Amazon and things like that. But we don't hand them to kids. And currently, I think we're doing a disservice to our kids now because we don't hand these out. Because there are things built into here automatically. I can click in the corner, I can select a region, and I can annotate right on it, but only if I have a stylus. That's not available if I just have my finger. Oh, that sucks. And there are more apps that are starting to take advantage of the stylus feature that makes better than the finger. What I really wish is there was some place to stick the stylus so that it wouldn't walk away. Samsung is the only one that's got that figured out, but their Chromebook's like $500. Okay? So the next section here, because I know that I don't have a whole lot of time and I get fired up about this stuff, here's some apps that we have pushed out to our kids and they're using them. Google Classroom. You ask yourself, why in the world do you push Google Classroom out to your kids? Google Classroom is a web page. If you have not played with the Google Classroom iOS or Android app, you need to go do that this evening. Because it is a fundamentally different way to interact with Google Classroom. I can write directly on my students' work in Google Classroom. I can write directly on my things and turn it into my teachers right in Google Classroom. That's why we do that for our kids. And you don't need a stylus for that one. Toontastic. Once it works, we push that out to our kids so they can start creating and telling stories with all these little pre-built little guys and girls and widgets and in Scratch, we call them sprites, right? That can tell a story. You can narrate it. You can do all sorts of really cool stuff with Toontastic 3D. Science Journal, this is one I just found out about, and I'm so excited to show it to my science teachers. We don't have this one pushed out yet. This one is a science notebook. Okay, so when I was in high school in physics, I had this 3-ring notebook that we had, and that thing was like gold. We had to turn it in every quarter. Physics teacher poured over it. We had all of our notes, and these are all the things that we did, all that kind of stuff. This is the electronic version for that, and it costs you exactly $0. And on top of the ability to annotate and take pictures and add things to it, it takes advantage of your accelerometers and your microphones. And you want to see how much, I'm going to put it on the table, and I'm going to bang the table, and you can see how that accelerometer works. Or you can swing it around, and don't let go, and see how that works. Or listen to the sound, or listen to the different things in there. It records all of that, and it puts it directly inside this app. Okay? There is no web app that works like that and that does that. It also is, I haven't been able to test it yet. I was told that it would work. It will even interact with our vernier probes and things that we have in our science lab. Okay? So Patrick is going to take and play with this for me at the high school to see what's going to happen. Okay? Squid. Squid is freemium. At its basis, it's a note-taking app. It's an electronic piece of paper. But if you want to buy the add-ons, you get graphing paper, and you get a compass, and you can get line paper, and all sorts of stuff. And you can annotate, bring in a picture, annotate on that picture, draw around on that picture. It's all about trying to move things electronically. The MyScript, a similar tool to Squid, currently in beta. There's some really cool stuff coming with this one that is to be released for the general public. Adobe Photoshop Mix, 100% free. Put Photoshop in the hands of every single one of your kids. Combine pictures, layer pictures, do all sorts of stuff right on your device. You can take a picture, it imports it directly into Photoshop Mix. You can bring in other pictures. You can't do crazy stuff like you can do in a full version of Photoshop, but outside of your art class and maybe a digital photography class, who really needs a full version of Adobe Photoshop? Most of them are like, I need to make it brighter, I need to make it softer, I want to do this, or I want to take out silly Karl, I want to do this other thing. You can do all that with this one app. Right in the Android interface, it's all native for Android on Chrome. Plotagon. Has anybody used Plotagon? It's a web tool too. Okay? Plotagon allows you to take your little characters, put in a narration, and then they will read what you say. You can build a script. It's kind of like a little bit more of a older version of Toontastic. So we're talking like middle school, high school age. This is also free. But you can buy extra scenes and stuff like that. But you can tell a story and do really cool stuff with the free stuff. Okay? Plotagon. Open eBooks. Open eBooks allows you, now you have to get your school signed up for this. Does anybody do Open eBooks? This was actually part of a federal program to bring tons of books to low-income families around the country. Okay, so this is an online library. Your library media specialist needs to go online, fill out a quick form, say this, and then you get access to it based on your domain. And your users can get in here and they can find all the books that they want, 100% free. They can read them. There's no check them out, check them back in. It's not just classical books that are copyright free, like Shakespeare and all that kind of stuff, because not a lot of kindergartners read Shakespeare anymore. And so Open eBooks is another one that we've gotten access for our kids because We want our kids to choose the tool and the form factor that fits best in how they need to do things. We have found some of our kids just want a paper book. Just give me a paper book, let me sit in the corner and let me read it. We have other kids that want to use the laptop. Why do you suppose the kids want to use the laptop to read their books?
They can do other things.
They can do other things, but that's actually not what we found to be the big reason. But you're right, they could listen to YouTube, whatever.
Book can be read to them.
The book can be read to them, yep, absolutely. That's one of the advantages as well.
Text size.
You can make the text bigger, it can be easier to read.
You can read what they want.
You can read anything you want. One of the things that has always irked me, my mother was a librarian growing up, so I spent many, many, many days in my mom's library. And one of the things that always bugged me, and we're starting to get to this now, more toward the end of her career, and now I get it, is how many of you have leveled text in your districts? Okay? We had to make this big deal out of, you're not an M. You can read any book that you want, but just because you have an M, that doesn't mean that's the case. And the problem is we had kids that are all over the spectrum, and Ames is not unique. We have kids that can't read very well and kids that read amazingly well, but you have no idea what that kid is reading if they're reading it on their laptop. And that was one of the huge keys for our kids, is that it allowed them to be like everybody else. It's not a thick book, it's not a thin book, it's not a picture book. You have no clue, classmate, when I'm reading on my computer. Okay? Next one, Let Me Talk. I learned about this one when I was talking to some Googlers last week. This is Boardmaker. For free on your Chromebook. You can go download, they ask for donations, you can put donation if you want, but there is tons of images in there. You build your sentences out, you press play, it will read to you. And you can upload your own images and take your own pictures and expand this beyond what you get right out of the box. I about fell out of my chair when she showed this to me. I'm going to take this to my assistive tech folks and my special ed folks come Thursday this week, because I got to get caught up from being gone for a few days, right? Just like you guys do. And show them, here, check this out. Look what we can do. Because every single kid in my district has a device. From kindergarten through 12th grade, everybody has a device to be able to do things, and we need to be able to take advantage of that. And if this is a tool that we can push to every kid, and it might help a kid that's kind of on that ledge of, I'm sort of verbal, I'm not completely nonverbal, we want them to have access to it. So tools like Let Me Talk, that's designed for this platform, work amazing. And then Seesaw, I think everybody in the universe uses Seesaw now at this point. It's become completely pervasive. And that's great. As a parent, I think it's really cool. As a former teacher, I think it's really cool. But the Seesaw class app makes it easier for the kids to submit things. But a lot of the apps that you're going to see, and I know I'm running out of time, we got WeVideo and Adobe Illustrator and Google Keep and Google Photo and Scratch Junior. A lot of these do both, the app and the web interface. Some are a little bit different. WeVideo, it's really easy to get video off the world-facing camera, but it's not as easy to edit. The web interface for WeVideo is better. So we're saying, here, pick the tool that you want to use. Google Keep, the reason we put Google Keep on all the devices is because remember I told you about that Stylus thing where I select a section and doodle on it? It saves it immediately to Google Keep if you installed it on the Chromebooks. The Chrome version of Google Keep doesn't work. Lastly, back to your very question, is how does it uninstall? Now, literally I found about this afternoon. When you go and unapprove an app, it will uninstall it the next time that user logs in, they restart their computer, the time trigger happens, whatever that tick off is in your domain, it's going to remove that app and all the files associated with it from that local device. Okay? I know that I have officially gone over, which should be surprising to no one, but thank you for your time. I'm going to hang out here if you have some more questions, and please send me emails if you got